It's Thursday, June 5th. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. We are living in a time of fire. With each spring comes wildfire season right across this country. How can communities prepare for what's here and what's to come? How are our firefighters doing? What do they need from us? How can we work together to adapt and build resilience? That is the discussion right across this province. It is a full province-wide discussion. I mean, most days are today full province-wide discussion. We've got voices from across Newfoundland and Labrador. I will start with, look, I'm on CBC News, right? cbc.ca/news. Quote, there's a lot I wish I would have taken. Residents in shock after northern Saskatchewan wildfire. Parts of village destroyed by fire that moved faster than expected. Video, wildfires gut Saskatchewan towns. It looks like a war zone. It's like all wildfire headlines on the top of the page, right? So you've got that. You also have a headline from this week. Canadian wildfire smoke blows over to Europe. First plumes reached Mediterranean on May 18th. More arriving this week from this province. A sigh of relief as conditions for battling Churchill Falls fire improves, says Minister. Blaze near Churchill Falls being held. That was May 30th. And I thought we were going to die. Adams Cove woman loses childhood home in wildfire. That was from May 20th, right? This is where we are in this province, in this country, when it comes to wildfires. They're more frequent, they are more intense, and today we're talking about where we are and what we can do about it. And in some cases, if anything, right? And there is stuff we can do. The Signal at cbc.ca for emails. You can leave us a voicemail, 709-576-5260. The text line is open, 709-327-8206. My guests in studio, Kathleen Parewick is here, Municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador Community Collaboration and Development Officer, the lead on something called Climate Ready NL. We will talk about that. We also have Fire Chief Fred Hollett here in studio from Portugal Cove-St. Phillips. Thank you both for coming in.
You're more than welcome.
Thank you.
I just read a slew of headlines, right? What came to your mind first, Kathleen?
The circumstances of the predominantly really small communities in this province that are facing these mounting risks and the tools that they need in order to be able to respond and adapt.
Chief?
The risk that's existing today within the province as we speak. The fires that have occurred so far this year, we're at 100 so far this year. And if you look at the stats, we're well ahead of where we were. The preparedness capability of municipalities and fire departments to react and take into consideration their primary role, which is protection of property within their communities. And as we saw what happened in Churchill Falls last week, and Labrador West last year, and Adams Cove, it's a challenge for the fire service and municipalities to get ready and execute the right moves. It's going to be some challenges.
You know, a dozen homes lost in Adams Cove, right? And when we talk about wildfires, I mean, like when we say lost, we're talking homes can be gone. Right? Flat. Right? You don't. I don't think it is hard to understand until you've seen it what this can mean. What is the potential? Right? Where are we for unfortunately the thinking of more Adams Coves in this province?
Well, look at what's happening across Canada.
Yeah. Look at the headlines I just read.
I watched the National last night in the community of Labrador on the CBC News this morning, another community in Saskatchewan or Manitoba. And I mean, she left her home with the view that she'd be back in a couple of days, and there was a picture of the home down to the foundation, flattened, as we said. You know, where are we from a fire protection perspective? You and I, the three of us chatted a little bit about the wildland-urban interface, and I said all we had to do was look out the window here and look across at the hillsides and the forested hill right behind it. I'm not sure we're position where we should be to respond quickly and efficiently to serious forest fire. I'm not sure. I could be challenged on that, but once these things take a life, as you're seeing in Western Canada, then I'm not sure what's going to. It's a challenge.
And Chief, you mentioned the wildland urban interface, right? I think the WUI, WUI,
Yep.
I think they call it,
Yep.
the fault line between forests and built environment. And guess what, folks? In Canada, more than half of Canadian homes, and I'm quoting the book Fire Weather by John Vaillant, more than half of Canadian homes are in the WUI.
Yep.
And like you just said, here at CBC St. John's, we look at the health sciences in the WUI, right? How many of us, look out your windows, folks, how many of you have beautiful forest outside your homes in this province? And that is gorgeous. It is great to have nature there, but it is also posing a massive hazard for us in this world we're living in.
In town of Portugal Cove-St. Phillips, they live right into trees.
Yeah.
Virtually, we have a real significant wildland urban interface issue right in that community alone, let alone what exists in other areas. And there's all kinds of people like to live in the woods.
Yeah,
and,
it's enjoyable.
It's enjoyable.
Yeah.
And thus, from the fire protection perspective, all we can do is advocate fire smart principles to do something around that immediate area of your home to try and mitigate any damage that may occur. And, that's firesmart.ca.
Yeah.
Click on and have a look. There's all kinds of info there.
And use it. I don't even say common sense. Just stop, in a way, don't do things that are dumb, like cigarette butts, and pay attention to fire bans, and just use your head, because, Chief, and before I go back to Kathleen, fires starting, how many of them are person made?
Pretty well everything that we've dealt with in Portugal Cove-St. Phillips so far this year has been, the fire was ignited by an individual.
So there you go.
Right down to a couple of weeks ago when we got word and one of our officers went down the road and said, "What are you doing?" "Well, I think I'll burn the grass in my yard." I said, "Oh, sir, it's not a good idea. Don't light the fire." "Well, why not?" It was a day, it was sunny. It wasn't quite as warm, but so people aren't really, they're not stopping to think. This idea of burning your lawn every spring, I'm not sure where that comes from. I'm not really sure.
I remember that growing up, right?
Yeah,
Seeing that growing up in Mount Pearl, and where I was too. Yeah, I remember seeing that.
Yeah, to set dead grass on fire. But we had another one there, and he said, "I only turned around for a minute. When I turned back, it was gone right up into the tree line." And fortunately, we got there in time to put it out. But people aren't thinking.
But if you have a hotter day with a bit of wind, and you have humidity that is low, with all that fuel.
I've been known of lately, I said to Ashley Browerwater there a bit ago, I said, it's a great day on the line of close. Great day on the line of close is a bad day to think about lighting a fire. And warm temperatures, low humidity, a little bit of breeze, great day on the line of close. Bad day to give any thought to having anything to do with a fire in your backyard. And thus, that's why Northeast Avalanche East in particular, on Tuesday afternoon, we've extended the ban to get us into today, see where we're going.
And we'll revisit it. Is it
We're
this
going
afternoon?
to revisit this afternoon. Yeah.
All right, so folks, stay on notice for that and the fire ban. Kathleen, your thought?
The moisture balance in our communities right now is really the thing that comes to mind for me in these conversations, because we were just down on the southern shore earlier this week having a conversation with a municipality there about the nature of the climate projections for their community, and they suggest that yes, there's going to be a lot more extreme precipitation, but and more precipitation overall. So there's going to be plenty of liquid in the system. However, it's happening in these extreme events that mean it's not retained on the landscape in the same way. We've had another winter where the snowpack hasn't been there, and the ground has not had the benefit of the snow melting and percolating in and being retained in areas that are that interface that we're talking about.
Yep.
So we've got some very significant changes that are already afoot in our circumstances that we need to stay on top of.
I want to go to the phones. Our first guest that we're phoning today, Therese Greenwood, author and survivor of the Fort McMurray wildfires back in 2016, right? So when you're in Newfoundland and Labrador, you also feel this connection to Fort McMurray because of our history and kinship with that community and the people of that community. Therese Greenwood, thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Adam. Thank you for inviting me.
I want to start with after. How does a community pick up the pieces after what Fort McMurray went through in 2016, when you had the evacuation of over 90,000 people, 2,400 homes and businesses destroyed, hundreds of others, over 500,000 hectares of land burned? How do you all kind of come back together after that, and how do you try to heal with all of the trauma?
Sometimes when I think about that, Adam, I don't know exactly how we did it.
Yeah.
It's the most incredible feeling in the world to look down into your basement, and it's full of fire retardant and ashes, and you have to pay a mortgage on it, going forward, right?
Yeah.
And so if you can imagine, like, thousands of people experiencing that same kind of trauma at the same time. And then you're looking for your mental health supports in the community, and those are staffed by people who have lost their homes. And people were going to access mental health support wearing the flip-flops that they had on the day that they ran out the door of the fire, and so is the person that you're meeting when you come in the door. It's just mind-boggling in a way to try to get your mind around it. But, at the same time, the people of Newfoundland know Fort McMurray has a definite mindset, right? Fort
Yeah.
McMurray's strong. And a lot of that is made up of, Newfoundland culture as well. And so people just really pitched together to help each other. Another thing that kind of surprised me at the time was, I knew I had lost my home. This was a traumatic experience. It was going to have an impact on me. But I didn't realize that the entire community was going to be traumatized at the same time, that we were all going to be going through these stages at the same time. And it didn't matter if you lost your home or not, because the people who didn't were suffering from a terrible survivor's guilt. And they were just trying to do everything they could to help everyone who did lose their home. It was just a really incredible time. It really was. And there was a lot of positivity in the community coming together.
When you look at, I started the show with headlines, right?
Mm-hmm.
I talked about what's happening in other parts of the country now, what has happened here, about this season that we're in, and this is an every year thing, mm-hmm. right? Starting every spring. What advice can you have for us or other communities as we're trying to be ready, as we're trying to prepare, and also just kind of process what could happen when it comes to wildfires?
Well, when I was reading my own book and I was talking to some emergency management people afterwards, it's hard to remember now, but we thought that people were probably dying in that fire as we were escaping it. It was just so overwhelming. It came up so quickly. And the next morning, everybody got up looking at the news, not to see if anybody died, but how many people died. And of course, no one died in the fire. And so the emergency experts were telling me that's because Fort McMurray has a very strong safety culture here, that Newfoundlanders would be familiar with that. Drill on the safety at the industry sites and things like that. They drill a lot of fire safety. So when the message came out to evacuate, everybody obeyed all the instructions immediately. And it definitely contributed to, we still had massive traffic jams on the road, trying to get out of town, and a lack of clarity. There's only one road in and out of Fort McMurray, so everybody knew where to go.
You're going north or south, right? For Fort Mac.
That's right. So that part was explained, but in terms of listening to mostly to people like CBC radio in the car was actually where we got a lot of our instructions from.
And I think people don't really the evacuation for Fort McMurray. Folks were driving through fire, right? There was fire on on the highway, and I was the current book I'm reading mentioned the vehicle to say the temperature, right? So mine, I go outside today, it'll probably say 25 degrees. Vehicles, the temperature's reading in the 60s or more, right? The vehicles were protection against the air and the heat, as you had this orderly fleeing of a community that was about to be devastated.
Absolutely. And it's very, like, there was one point I realized, the temperature is getting hotter in the car. I was alone in it. And then it looked like snowflakes were coming down and landing on the car. And I thought, I know fires start their own weather, but seriously. And then I realized it was ashes. And that was like very frightening to think, oh, the heat's going up, the ashes are hitting the car. You're looking out the window to see how far you are from the river in case you have to run for it. It's a completely surreal experience. And I'm sure people are going through similar things right now, which is sparking a lot of empathy in Fort McMurray and a few tears, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine living through what you folks lived through, and then to turn on the TV now and to know that more people are joining this rather unfortunate club to be part of, right? Like, that is hard.
But it is, and you know so well the long slog that people have ahead of them, because it's not just you rebuilding your house, it's, thousands of people rebuilding their homes. So it's hard to get materials, it's hard to buy teapots, all those, everybody needs everything. And even that was orderly in town. Like, people weren't shoving each other out of the way at the Walmart or Black Friday style or anything like that. People were working together, sharing things, giving things, making sure kids had toys, things like that.
Well, Therese, I think that's the message for me, and I think a great message for folks to remember that community aspect of when these things happen, as we live through it, to keep that in mind. I just want to say thank you for coming on the show to talk about this. It is your experience and you telling it and doing these things. It's really important. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for asking me.
All right. Folks, Therese Greenwood, author, survivor of the Fort McMurray wildfires in 2016. Therese's Greenwood's memoir, What You Take With You, Wildfire, available wherever books are sold. Let me go back to my guests here in the studio. Folks, this is The Signal. We are talking about wildfires, wildfire season. We are talking about Newfoundland and Labrador, community preparation, firefighter preparation, and more. We've got Fire Chief Fred Hollett in studio from Portugal Cove-St. Phillip's. Kathleen Parewick is here as well, the lead of the Climate Ready NL program for MNL. Thoughts on what Therese was saying, folks?
She did a wonderful job, I think, of painting the picture of not just the experience of the event itself, but the long tail of recovery. The full story, full life experience, and that lived experience, unfortunately, is something that more communities here are starting to share. I
picked up one piece that, with regards to the emergency preparedness. In Fort McMurray, that regional municipality of Wood Buffalo, I think is the bigger piece for him. The former employee of mine used to work for him for a period of time, and I had a little bit of insight to the emergency preparedness side. They were fairly well advanced, and she spoke about the strong safety culture and the fact that people listen to direction. I know the province has spent a fair bit of time. I mean, this initiative started back before I retired from the province in 2012 in advancing and promoting and encouraging municipalities to create emergency preparedness plans, because there was a point in time when there wasn't a lot there. I think they're still working at it. Kathleen may have a better idea than I on that one as to where they are, where the municipalities find themselves. I question sometimes whether or not our general population is on board with this. Okay, boys, we got to evacuate. And I really wonder if they're going to really. I'm thinking that the public awareness, there's a continued job on the part of probably the province and on at the local level, maybe municipalities and others, to just continue to promote awareness of risk and action plans, and the fact that if we tell you that there's a fire ban on, if we tell you there's a forest fire encroaching and you need to leave, we don't need to be having an argument with you in the middle of the street about whether or not you should go.
No, because lives will be lost.
Yeah, please,
right?
Yes, right. And stood up on a street in any street, Newfoundland, trying to remind a citizen about what's happening in Western Canada right now is a poor time when you're watching the forest fire come over the hill. And so I wonder sometimes if, and I could be challenged on this, but the public acknowledgement that when they're told they should leave, will they get up and readily leave? I wonder if that's where we're going to have the case. We had emergencies years ago. We had cases, Badger flood. There was no, sir. And we actually approached the police and said, there's a resident down there in probably one of the most dangerous areas within that flood zone right now. And when they researched it, there was nothing they could do. He was making his own choice to stay there. And we went down and said, sir, you realize that if something happens, no one is coming to get you. Yeah. Well, you'll have to come and get me. No, we're not. What are we supposed to do?
This is the time. Yeah. When we tell you it's the time, it's the time. There's no mulligans on this because you're putting other people in danger.
But that actually happened in that Badger flood back in 2002 or 3.
Yeah, the early aughts. Yeah. I was in university at the time. Before I go back to Kathleen, we've got another fire chief on the line, Duane Antle. Right, come by chance, president of the Newfoundland and Labrador Association of Fire Services. Chief Antle, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Good. When we talk about where are your thoughts right now for wildfire season, and whether it's provincial or in the come by chance area for preparedness and how we are doing for being ready as you can be for this type of a thing for wildfire season?
We have to do better, both provincially, locally, and federally. With the climate change that we're seeing, things are not like they were 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, we may have been very well prepared, but those measures today are just not enough to combat the changes that we're seeing.
What do we need more of? What do we need to change? What do we need to do? Because here in the studio for the discussion we've been having so far with Chief Hollett, right? It's about also realizing firefighters in communities and volunteer firefighters are responsible for structures and people in towns and communities. They are not the ones in the woods with forestry doing that. Like there's a division in responsibilities. You're not out in the woods with your bunker gear. So just with that being said, if you want to either elaborate on that or talk about what you feel we need to be better at this in this province for being ready and for firefighting for wildfires.
Having a good emergency plan and having it communicated to the residents is the first thing that we should be doing as local communities. And Chief Hollett alluded to an interesting point about, if somebody would leave if a fire was encroaching on their home. I think maybe some of that can be changed with education.
Yeah.
And one thing that you do see now that I've seen at the local level, when we put fire bans on now, people are listening. They're not challenging us. They're not calling to say, oh, well, we had rain, 2 days ago. If we put it on, people are respecting that. And I think it's because of what they're seeing, not only around our province, but around Canada.
Yeah.
I mean, Tuesday night there was an emergency debate in the House of Commons because of wildfires and the devastation that is causing in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. So this is a really big problem. And I think some people are seeing this and they're starting to recognize that, you know what, we got to change too.
For firefighting ability, what needs to change for firefighting ability? We've got so many volunteer firefighters across the province. How ready are towns for if they are threatened?
Some towns, I think, are very ready. They have good emergency plans. They know how they're going to handle an evacuation. Like my town, for example, we've been trying to purchase some extra equipment as we can that you would probably use to in that circumstance. But there's a lot of towns that they're going to be lost when this happens to them. They're not going to know what to do, and they don't have the money for maybe equipment that they'd like to have. And the other thing is the province. We only have so many forestry firefighters.
Yeah.
And they are specialists at what they do. they're not just a group of guys that go out in the woods with backpacks. These guys are experts at reading fire, reading wildfire, how it's going to move, where it's going to go, how they need to cut it off. That's not training that most volunteer firefighters have. On the other side of that discussion, such as what happened in Adams Cove, they're not trained in structural firefighting.
Yeah.
So maybe one time there was a big division that could be looked at, but now I think with fires getting bigger and burning faster, structural and forestry firefighters are coming to, they're working together a lot more now than they ever were.
Yeah.
But without enough people, it is what it is, I suppose, right now. And I think the provincial government recognises that they need to do more. Very happy to hear that they're going to repair that water bomber that was sitting for a couple of years. So that's a big step forward.
Chief Antle, I know you're busy, and I think you're also on call, so I'll just say thank you right now. I always appreciate you coming on the show, and be well, and thanks again.
Thank you for highlighting this issue.
All right, sir. Be well.
Thank you.
I will say I did send 2 notes to the provincial government when I was planning this show, and I'm waiting to see just perhaps there could be a later show with voices from forestry, but the note, an email and a follow-up was sent in a few weeks back, and I've not heard anything since. I will leave that there. Any thoughts around what the other chief was saying?
Maybe I'll start.
Yeah, go ahead.
The municipal emergency management plans, every municipality in the province has one, in theory.
Yep.
In theory, they all do. The question that we have at this stage in the game is, when was the last time it was looked at? And, if communities that we know are already having difficulty undertaking what it is they do, filling seats on council, recruiting and retaining volunteers in their fire departments, if they are in a position in every instance to be looking at that plan regularly, exercising that plan, identifying the types of changes that are occurring that mean that there are scenarios in those plans right now that have not been thought of. And we have to be really getting those documents out, dusted off, and in every
do some
instance,
tabletop exercises, right? And
absolutely.
with people who have been through this to figure out, run the scenario for your town, run it, and see where the gaps are with someone who's lived it.
Yeah, well, and employ a climate lens.
Yeah.
Because right now there are certain types of risks that we can say with surety are increasingly occurring in these spaces, and that 10 years that Fred was referring to, it is a different landscape right now.
I agree with Kathleen's observation on the plans that exist. I also agree with her observation that they probably haven't been dusted off at some time.
Yeah.
When you think about these really small rural communities in the province, what comes to my mind, I'm fire chief for a fairly robust town.
Yeah, there's a few people. You got
we got
you're
people.
town,
we,
right? You're
we
not
have
one
resources.
person working town. You got folks. Yeah.
My fire department does not have the fundraise. We are appropriately budgeted.
Yeah.
When I think about and Duane, too bad Duane wasn't here because I know he'd support this. I mean, there exists today. And I retired from the province in 2012 as fire commissioner in the EM role that I carried. I don't think there's still areas where they're struggling to pull together a few dollars just to keep gas in the fire truck. They're paying light bills in fire halls, and I can't. I could quickly turn around and say, well, that's municipality responsibility, but the municipalities themselves, and again, Kathleen can speak to this so much better than I think they're struggling just to keep the lights on, shall we say, and so when you look at the challenges before the smaller municipalities who don't have the resources of the Northeast Avalon communities, as I said, without just singling out Portugal Cove-St. Phillips, there's a challenge. There may be an opportunity because they're in the there's opportunity for regional emergency planning and regional cooperation between the fire departments. It's being advanced a bit more since my day as fire commissioner, but these may be some of the areas that we need to push the fire departments towards. I'm still not, they're structural firefighters, but when you see some of the, I think one of your upcoming guests her fire service is a regional venture in Glenburnie area. I think they call it the South Shore Fire Department, something like that.
Okay.
It's a regional initiative. But so there may be some pieces that need to be done. When the small municipalities, as Duane said, they're trying to pull together basic resources. Maybe the idea of some regional cooperation is something that they're going to have to start pushing towards, because when you see communities impacted, when Adams Cove occurred, there was a whole bunch of reaction by a bunch of other municipalities over on that North Shore who were there to assist. And there was fire trucks most immediately, but there was a bunch of other things that they could have accessed as well if warranted. And I wasn't there, don't know what they did. Know some of the players.
But it's just the picture of what could be available, right? When you're pooling resources for small communities. So,
absolutely.
So I've got someone now with two hats for this next guest on the phone. Amy Coady's on the line, Grand Falls-Windsor councillor, but also the president of Municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador. Amy Coady, how you doing?
I'm great, Adam. Thanks for having me on today.
Thanks for coming on for this discussion. So first, president of MNL hat, small communities, firefighting, with a look towards wildfires and just, doing everything that needs to be done with the threat. What's the reality for small communities?
Well, the reality is that it could happen any day. And while they know they have to be prepared, a lot of the times they just don't have the resources or the ability to actually be prepared. And just to speak, Kathleen has been working with our municipalities on this for a long time, creating tools to help them. But the regional approach is key. They have to work with each other. We've got communities now who might have a fire truck, and the other community might have, the Jaws of Life materials. Yeah. They need to work together. They need to have their plans. They need to have their individual plan, but they also need to know what resources are available in neighboring communities to call on when an emergency does happen.
Now, the other question, right? Grand Falls-Windsor, you're part of the emergency planning team for the town, right? You had a wildfire closing in. Talk to me about the difference between the plan as it was then and what you learned with everything that happened.
Well, we learned that it was a good thing to have a plan, but we also realized we had several deficiencies in our plan that needed to be addressed in the moment of the emergency. One of the biggest things that we realized is we didn't have contingency or a plan for family pets. We were in a forest fire in 2022. Heavy smoke was the reason for evacuation. We were evacuating people around central Newfoundland. There were people going to stay with family and whatnot, but there were people who had to travel by bus to another community, and they were refusing to leave without their pets. We had no contingencies in place for pets. They couldn't get on the buses that were arranged because of capacity issues, people with allergies to animals. So we had to very quickly reach out to the community of Deer Lake, who agreed to provide space to house animals of people who were having to be evacuated from the community. So very quickly we realized that's a huge deficiency in our plan, one that needs to be addressed. And in case of any other future emergencies, we need to know right away that we have a plan in place to take pets.
Last question for you. When it comes to the partnership with the provincial government, do you need or want, is more needed from the provincial government when it comes to wildfires and communities and protection in this province?
Yeah, I think there's always more that can be done. Additional resources, different types of communication. Cellular service, of course, is a major topic that we've been talking about lately.
Yeah, dead zones in the
fire
province.
in Adams Cove. Exactly. The province has, they're doing their Wi-Fi hotspot pilot project, which is wonderful, but there are too many dead zones in these areas. We've been saying it for a while. Cellular coverage and Wi-Fi coverage is not a luxury, it's a lifeline.
Yeah.
We need to have stable communication in place to make sure that families can be in touch with each other, and that we can always be in touch with emergency officials to make sure that everybody is safe and we're getting the information that we need in a timely manner.
Amy Coady, as always, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Adam.
Amy Coady there, Grand Falls-Windsor Councillor, President MNL. Before I go back to my guests in studio, we have Wabush Mayor Ron Barron on the line. Mayor Barron, how are you doing?
I'm not too bad, sir. How are you?
Not too bad, sir. Question for you: as mayor, what have you learned about wildfires in your community, and what more needs to be done to protect you and yours and the folks around you?
Well, we've been through this a couple of times now in the last 10 years, I guess. In 2013, we evacuated our community here with a forest fire that played out in the region. So we learned a lot from that one. And then again last year, Lab City was forced to evacuate because of a fire that they had in their area. So how do you react to these fires? Well, there's different circumstances all the time. And they play out differently. Yeah. So it's something that you just got to go with and try to have the best plans in place, and hopefully they pan out. But like in 2013, one big thing that we learned is communicating your message. Make sure you're clear and concise in what you're trying to get out there, because if you're not, then it causes chaos at times. And I'll just give you a quick example of that. We were getting ready to evacuate our community, so we put the community on notice, and basically all our message was be prepared to evacuate, await further instructions. What we should have said at that same time was be prepared to evacuate. We're going to do it street by street, await further instructions. We didn't do that. But everybody came to one time. So it kind of caused a little backup in the community for a little bit during that. It still went very safely. We never had no incidences, but it could have ran even smoother if we'd done it the way we were hoping to do, but the message wasn't proper.
Yes.
So it's just a little thing like that you learn from it.
You live through it, you learn from it, you put it into the plan, and you spread it around so other communities could know what your experience has been. Before one other question for you, Mayor Barron: what resources, extra resources, or extra implementation of anything would you like to see in your region?
Well, in the last probably 3 or 4 years, we lost our water bomber here in the area, and then the plane was stationed in Wabush for the last 30-plus years. It was taken out of here supposedly just because they were doing work on the runway out here. It never came back. Since then, the Forestry Department and I guess Transportation Works, whoever makes these calls, they're looking at making a center on the island in Gander for all the fleet. It don't make sense. The geography here in Labrador is that, you can put 3 islands in Newfoundland are better in Labrador, and we're going to try to service everybody from one service center. It doesn't make sense. Fires are put in by 3 means: as boots on the ground, resources in the air, water bombers, helicopters, and heaven forbid God helps you out too and helps you put the fire out. But those first 2 are key and critical, which is lacking here in Lab West and Wabush. Even the crew on the ground here. We used to have 5 full-time firefighters here, Forestry Department members, and seasonally we'd have another 3 or 4. Right now we're down to 2. Right. We can't get our seasonal workers to come here and work because there's nowhere for them to live, because that's a whole different issue we can get into, I'm sure. But, there's many factors here, and the fact that they're making Gander the central hub now for Atlantic firefighting, it doesn't make sense for the people here in Labrador, and not just Lab West, but Goose Bay. I know just this past week with the fire in Churchill Falls, it was only because the MHA here locally, Jordan Brown, was calling and saying, where's our plane to? You're supposed to have it here when there's a high index or extreme index. Where's the plane? So it was only because of his bidding that plane was on right and landed here at 4 o'clock, and then heaven forbid we had a fire over in Churchill. That plane, and luckily that plane was on the ground here that was able to go over there and assist in that fire over there. If not, it was a couple extra hours, and who knows, maybe couldn't even made it into Labrador if it wasn't called. Right. You know.
Lots to think about there, Mayor Barron, and also that housing point again, right? Lab West and housing, it's an issue. It's come up a few times, and we'll be talking more about it. I appreciate your time.
Well, I could go all day on the issues here about services and resources here, especially with the weather coming now this summer. It's supposed to be hotter than ever. Again, those resources need to be here on the ground, and it falls upon government to make sure that they're here adequately trying to protect our communities. And I hate, a lot of times I say, folks, I'm looking forward to talking again. I really hope we don't have to talk about that stuff later in this. I'm hoping for a calm summer for you folks, sir. But other than that, I'll be in touch eventually. No problem. Thank you. Have a great day. Mayor Ron Barron there at Wabush. We got a couple guests. We got some texts and emails coming in too. But for both of you here in studio, thoughts, reactions around anything that's been said?
I just to pick up on President Coady's comments with regards to the communication cell service. Absolutely. I mean, and speaking with some of the people who I know were associated with the Adams Cove situation. One of the first things they were looking for was trying to get cell communications, and I think I heard it from the emergency services side. I know the public spoke to it as well. But clear, capable communications is critical. I will commend the new public safety radio initiative, the P25 initiative that's in place. Once they got that up and functioning over there, it worked well, and there's this. The province has funded that to great expense, but it's a really good initiative. I know that function. I'm told that function well for them. But I agree with President Coady and her observations on, cellular service when it started. Well, that was a bit of a luxury. If you carried a cell phone, you were somehow privileged. Not everyone had them. Today, who doesn't have them, and who doesn't move or go somewhere without some form of communications with them? So it seems, I agree, it's a necessity, and initiatives need to be advanced. Only because I was up reading CBC News early this morning, and I picked up on Mayor Barron's observation on his replacement of the water bomber, which is probably overdue. Yeah. And the 2032, before Manitoba will even see the 5 or 6 that they've got ordered, with $80 million already put down. The backlog, the international demand, 2031, 2032, before the headline was demand for water bombers to skyrocket as Canada grapples with more intense wildfires. Well, but we build them here and we can't get them. Yeah, the international demand apparently is.
And we're in a time of building, right? According to the Prime Minister. So it's just, we'll see what happens here.
National initiatives, let's go.
Yeah, it's when you look across at the news across the country, like you're saying, what you're laying out there. Do you have thoughts, Kathleen?
Absolutely.
All right,
I mean, we're peeling the onion here.
Yeah.
There are so many dimensions, so many layers to this conversation about preparedness and community safety and emergency planning, and this really is the backstop to the Climate Ready NL program, which is going to be focused over the course of the next couple of years on these community scale conversations about preparedness, about responding to climate change, about adaptation, ensuring that communities, first of all, have baseline information about the mounting climate-related risks that they face, and then actually taking that information and applying it to both, emergency plan updates, the kinds of scenario generation that is required to address drier conditions, more wildfires, extreme weather events, coastal erosion, and flood risk, and the full scope of risks that are mounting across the province. So we're very happy in that circumstance to be partnered with the Newfoundland and Labrador Association of Fire Services, the Professional Municipal Administrators, and the Stewardship Association of Municipalities. To that point I was trying to make earlier about we need to keep wetlands on the landscape. This is part of what we need in order to maintain that moisture balance.
Yeah, this is the fulsome picture, right, of what is needed.
That's right.
A couple rapid fire questions, because we've got another guest that I will get to in 1 minute, but we had a couple texts come in. One, I think it's time the provincial government should bring in a province-wide fire bans on all fires. It's very dry. We don't want another Adams Cove fire. Luckily, we didn't have a loss of life. That is from Don in Salmon Cove. Thank you. Another message from Craig in Bayvert. Fire buffers around towns. What are the requirements for them? Chief, are there requirements for fire buffers?
No, I don't.
And a lot of people don't want them, right? Like, you don't want to clear 3 kilometers, and as effective as that would be.
Fire buffers or fire breaks is what we would refer to them. I think it's referring to.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not aware of a significant amount of work being done around municipalities in the province to that degree. Yes, they would be of merit. You see them being created all of a sudden when a fire is encroaching upon a location. There's not only the preparedness of it, then there's the maintenance of it, and don't know if there's an appetite, and I'm almost looking to Kathleen here, and I don't know if there's an appetite to just go in and cut large swaths of forested land, clear cut that down to a gravel base for 300 meters wide and however
the
many
person power behind it and all of that, and the planning and everything.
And who's going to undertake it?
When people like living in what we called earlier in the show the WUI, right? Like the urban interface bit.
Yeah, and the ecosystem services that those forest areas provide and the wetland areas provide. I mean, we have to find a balance between areas that denuded would enhance erosion, would create issues of rising heat, no available shelter.
Stuff is complicated.
It is.
Further with these points, it says to the point there from Craig, there's technology that is out there that we're not using: fireball extinguishers, ultrasound, drones that can carry these technologies. This is like there's a futuristic, modern day, but not here yet. Discussion perhaps.
Could be a discussion. I'm not aware of anything right now. I'm not saying there's not out there.
Just like for an evolution side of how do we combat this, right? What do we do? Another quick question before I get to the next guest. Do we collect data on the source of ignition for each reported wildfire in NL?
There is on the forestry website. If you go Forestry, Agriculture and Fisheries Department, click forestry, you click on report a wildfire, and you see a bunch of information there, and that's where I get some of the stats on, I said earlier, lightning and people are the 2 greatest causes of fire. I think people are the highest cause of fires. There's other causes. There's a table there that indicates the causes of fires that they identify.
Okay. So for
they attach numbers to it as well.
Okay, so that's Paul sent that in. So Paul, do take a look there. You can get some of the information you need. I want to go to Myrna Goosney, who's on the line, town manager of Glenburnie-Birchy Head-Shoal Brook, and the vice president of professional municipal administrators. Folks, these are the people who, when you have towns who have 1 employee, these are those employees who keep the towns running. Hi, Myrna.
Hi.
Tell us about your community, your specific location, and the. I think in your case, there's a bit of a unique situation for risk and placement. So give us that description if you could.
Certainly. Thank you for having me. I am situated within the one of the enclave communities in Grossmore National Park. So there are 7 communities. We work very closely together, and we are surrounded by Parks Canada. So that puts us in a unique position, of course, because that is a federal body.
So what are the plans in case of wildfires for you folks? Of just if you look for the emergency plan, how does that work?
So we each individually have our emergency plans, like all towns are asked to do. We need to update ours, as we all do regularly, but within the park, of course, they have to be at the table, and there are certain things that they would regulate. So normally towns have to deal with their roads. We are surrounded, like I said, by Parks Canada, so the forest that surrounds us and the roads that go through the outside of our towns would also be under their jurisdiction. So we have to work very closely with them when it comes to fire emergency situations.
How many people work in your office?
Just me.
Just you.
Yeah.
How many people are on your council?
There are 5.
5. How many people work for your fire department?
We have between 25 and 30 that are active fire fighters right now, and all volunteers, of course.
And when we think of the communities of Newfoundland and Labrador, are you alone in this kind of a position, or are there others like you?
Oh, gosh, absolutely not. So in Newfoundland and Labrador, I would imagine that the majority of communities are fairly small, and a lot of communities are in the position like myself, where we have one person that runs the office, is a town clerk or town clerk manager, and they may, like myself, I have a seasonal maintenance person that works with me, and a lot of other towns have the same issues, all volunteers plus one person.
So what does that mean for protecting homes, buildings, structures, lives when there's an encroaching wildfire in towns like this?
That's a lot of stress on people that have just one person, and people who are volunteering their time and their efforts to protect their communities. So, when there are things like emergency planning efforts to be done, climate change adaptation plans to be done, that all falls to a council who have it then fall to that one person in the office, and they're responsible for that.
We're almost out of time. I got to let you go. I could talk to you for a lot longer, but do stay in touch, and thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you so much.
Myrna Goosney there, town clerk, Grossmoran, in and around, right? Grossmoran. I will say municipal elections are coming up on October the 2nd, I believe. And from the show we did in Gander, municipalities are having trouble recruiting people for positions. And if you have communities where you have councils of like 5 people and you have people not running, you can you can kind of fill in the gaps for the issues this is going to cause folks like Myrna and the running of communities. We will be doing future shows on that. How do we wrap up here today, folks? I mean, honestly, I could keep talking to 2 of you for like a couple hours, to be honest, but we have 3 minutes. So how do we wrap up this conversation for a future-looking thing?
I'll start.
Thanks, Chief.
Jem White asked me a question Monday morning about...
Yeah, on the morning show, yeah.
Only because I've been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Do I recall this? No. If you think back over the years, if you look at the last 10 years, I reflect back to 2001, 2002, 2003, and I was fire commissioner tasked to take on EM, and all of a sudden all these events started occurring. Oliver Lang was the minister one day. He said, "How come all this is happening since you took responsibility?" I said, "I didn't cause the floods, the fires, the landslides, but things are changing, and reflect on look at the amount of conversation that's been had now over the past 3-4 weeks over this whole wildland urban interface thing, and look at what every night on the news, national news, and what's going on in Western Canada. So things are changing. Awareness needs to be increased. The emergency preparedness plans within communities have got to be enhanced. The municipal fire departments are going to have a challenge, again, as we spoke earlier, about their primary duty versus the forest fire duties. We can look at the province and say that there needs to be better done. The municipalities, Ms. Goosney from Glenburnie-Birchy Head-Shoal Brook, look at the challenge over there.
Yeah.
She's one person in that office trying to keep all that going, and a bunch of volunteers in the fire hall who also have many other responsibilities. They have to work, they have family responsibilities, and life is something they have to deal with. They'll do their piece. The one component of society is the public itself. Right now, they need to be listening to what's being said. If you have any ideas about setting fires, please make a phone call. Please call your municipality. Please call your fire department. Please call forestry. Do something to assist us. When we put bans on, we do not do it just because we can. It's done because we think it's serious and need it. Because
it matters. Kathleen, less than 30 seconds to you. Final thoughts?
Climate Ready NL is a municipal sector-wide campaign that is going to be digging deep on exactly these kinds of issues. Please reach out to Municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador, and we'll include you in that really important conversation.
All right, folks. Kathleen Parewick, Chief Fred Hollett, thank you both for this discussion. It's obviously an important one. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
All right, everyone, that is it for today's show. If you have questions or thoughts for us, thesignal@cbc.ca. We're taking the show on the road. We're going to the right-hand edge of Canada tomorrow, Cape Spear, 50 years of Parks Canada at Cape Spear. We'll talk the history. We'll talk to a former lighthouse keeper, and plus there's some baked goods. Cheers.